How old is he?
Oh, he's only 6 months old. Yeah, so he's only a little guy, and we've had kuni pigs for about 4 years now, 4 or 5 years.
A piglet named Dragon almost stole the show when producer Sally Round called in to meet Jared Hiakita at the start of the winter. Among Jared's passions are growing food and helping others to do the same. Jared lives off-grid in Northland with his young family.
We're on the north side of the Hokianga Nuia Kupe in Te Tai Tokerau, Northland. Where we are here is a place called Motukauri, and we're on my partner Rangimarie, her whānau's land, their farm. They've been here for about 120 years, and about 8 years ago me and Rangi returned here, came back and started building our tiny house on wheels. We weren't even sure if we were going to stay here, but because we built on wheels, it meant that if we changed our mind, we could move away. So yeah, we stayed, and now we've got 2 kids, and we've just spent the last 6 years kind of developing our place, building up our mara, our gardens, planting out fruit trees, food forests, and building more infrastructure to create our own little food system here.
It's a great place for growing things, isn't it?
Great place for growing things, great place to grow kids, beautiful community, really rugged and remote, and also it's super warm up here in the Hokianga, so we can grow for a long time. We've got a long growing season, and we can also grow bananas really well and other types of subtropical fruits that can't really grow southward from here. So yeah, it's really, really cool, really lucky.
Should we go and have a look and see what you've got growing?
Yeah, let's go.
But it's a little bit hard to get going with Dragon, the resident kuni piglet, at our feet.
Oh my gosh, you're such a cute thing.
That's why I kept him. He was by far the most attractive out of all the pigs. Hey. So yeah, this is Dragon. He's our resident kuni boar. And he prances around acting all tough, but as soon as you start scratching his belly, he just surrenders and rolls over and starts groaning.
He's definitely enjoying that scratch at the moment.
He is, yeah. His job is to clear grass from areas that we want to turn into gardens or to plant trees. So sometimes we'll fence him into an area, and he'll get rid of all the grass. And then we can come in and plant whatever we want to in there afterward, and we don't need to use any sprays or anything like that.
Efficient and natural.
Yeah, and he leaves lots of little nutrient-rich parcels all over the place, so
Nice.
he does his job well, yeah.
He loves that. He's just lying on your gumboot at the moment, Jared, and you're giving him a good scratch.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, he's off. He didn't like that. I dropped the camera.
That's all right. So we're just heading downhill from our home, where our home is, and kind of the first terrace below our house, we have our gardens. You know, it's good to have your gardens close to your house because they're one of the kind of things you need to visit the most consistently. So we've got the first garden terrace, second garden terrace, the third terrace is an animal terrace. So I've got an animal shelter here that I built out of some of the logs that my partner's parents planted. And this is kind of the area where we host our animals. They live in here. They localise all the manure and the fertility that they've collected from outside and bring it in here and just make it easy for us to collect all in one spot and then start cycling through the different areas of our gardens and our fruit trees. I've been interested in gardening and growing food since I was a kid. As I was growing up, my uncles and aunties would tell me stories about my nan and my koro, my grandfather, and their gardens, and just how abundant these gardens were, and how there was just continuous rows and rows and rows of kutumara and riwai potatoes and everything you would need, like 100 chickens and 50 pigs.
And this was back in the Bay of Plenty, which is where you're from originally.
Yeah. So I'm from a place called Waimana in the Bay of Plenty, just at the northern edge of the Urewera National Park. So my uncles told me these amazing stories about their gardens that they had growing up, that my nan and my koro were responsible for, and that they would have to go and pitch in to maintain. By the time I was being told these stories, that's all they were. They were just stories. It wasn't real anymore because, like everyone else, they got caught in the wave of urban drift and kind of moved away from that way of life. And it wasn't until I visited Permadynamics and Kuanga Institute that I saw these humming, beautiful food systems. They were just growing a variety of foods, from mushrooms to vegetables and fruits, and growing their own meats and processing their own meats and all that sort of thing. And I saw the vision that my uncles and aunties described to me. That's when I became really passionate about growing food. And so from there, it kind of just became a self-pursued kind of passion, a lot of time spent on the internet, just watching things and eventually signing up for courses. But I didn't have the privilege of growing up growing food and knowing what it was like to go and harvest food right from outside your doorstep. But now that we're here on this whenua, that's what we're trying to create is a beautiful, abundant food system that will provide for many generations ahead.
The wind gets up as we wander towards another terrace where Jared's practicing a food-growing system known as syntropic agroforestry. Put simply, it's about planting cropping trees and other plants in a dense and varied way.
There's probably 50 different species of plants in this food forest.
Now you have a machete in your hand there.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that?
So the machete is one of the main tools that I use to manage the food forest. Maybe we'll go in and I can sort of demonstrate how I use it, how I manage the trees and prune them and whatnot. So should we go in?
We will. Dragon's just nibbling my ankle at the moment.
Yeah,
You're going to come too, Dragon?
He's like that. So I've got a couple of these.
Jared sets to with his machete, leaving the branches and leaves on the forest floor to add to the rich layer of stuff already decomposing and nourishing the soil.
There's 2 rows, so all of the trees are planted in a long row in this setup. Each is about 30 metres long. There's a mixture of fruiting trees, companion trees, medicinal trees. I would call it a mix between a garden, a traditional orchard, and a forest in terms of how all the plants are interacting with each other and how we've chosen to lay it out. So there's bananas, there's nashi pears, tamarillos, mulberries, taro, white sapotes, there's cherimoyas, custard apples, silver berries, citrus,
Wow.
natives, coca.
All in that small area there,
Yeah.
just living alongside each other.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea of syntropic agroforestry.
Yeah, so it's a practice that's kind of been developed recently in the last sort of, I think, 15, 20 years over in Brazil. And it has 4 kind of key components that kind of make up it as a practice. And one of them is density. If you go into any podocarp forest in New Zealand, it's really dense, especially in the areas that are more untouched. You know, there's big trees and then there's small trees and there's shrubs, and in some places you'll struggle to walk 10 metres in 1 minute because there's just vines going everywhere. And that's one part of practicing syntropic agroforestry is leaning into density, so planting lots of plants. Another concept is stratification, which basically means how you arrange these plants in space and in time, which I know sounds a bit trippy, but basically what it means is, like, if you know the life cycle, the growth rate of a tree, how fast it's going to grow, you can plant it somewhere that you know it's going to grow fast enough that it won't impede, say, a really expensive and nice long-term fruit tree right next to it that's going to grow slowly. But also you'll manage it in a way, you'll prune it in a way so that they can exist together. Succession is another one of these concepts that's really important in syntropic agroforestry. Basically understanding how long you're going to have a plant in your food forest, how long it's going to live, and when it's going to phase out, or when you're going to phase it out, when say you're going to cut it down because now it's served its purpose and now it's just casting too much shade, for instance. And diversity is the other tenet, which is basically about having as much variety of plant species as you can. Look at that!
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh,
That
that's
looks
an
like
incredible mushroom.
That looks like a claw sticking out of the ground. It's red?
Yeah, it's bright red. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like arms coming out that look like what they have, like crab pincers. And I've seen pictures of this mushroom. I'm sure if I took a photo of it, someone would be able to identify it really quickly.
Can you eat it?
Oh, should we find out? No.
It looks a bit deadly to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't without doing some thorough research. But anytime I see a new mushroom in the food forest, it's a good sign, because microbial fungal network is one of the most important factors to having good soil fertility. Mauri in your whenua. And seeing this mushroom to me is a good sign. And we can see other mushrooms around the place too.
Yeah.
Oh, look, that's another one, I think.
Wow.
It looks like it's about to explode out and look like that.
Good stuff is happening in that soil.
Good stuff is happening.
That's very satisfying.
Oh, that's so cool. It's funny that you caught that right now.
I can see a tamarillo there.
Yeah. That'd be like one of the last of the food forest tamarillos on the ground. Let's cut it open and try it.
Yeah. It's delicious.
Not bad, eh? Yeah. But they get sweeter than that.
That's sweet enough for me.
Yeah.
Do you find the quality of the fruit that comes off these trees is better when they're all mixed in like that? Do you get more?
Yeah, like definitely certain plants prefer a more sheltered, semi-shaded environment. Tamarillo, for instance, and custard apple are two varieties of fruit that will do much better in a little bit of shade compared to the tamarillos that I have growing in full sun. I'm getting 10 times more fruit. There's obviously a lot of other plants that it's highly unrecommended to grow in the shade, and in a dense environment like peaches and a lot of temperate fruit trees, they want a lot of air circulating.
We leave the food forest and hop in the truck. There's a new project taking up more of Jared's time these days.
Right now we're going over to our new enterprise. It's a social enterprise, a fruit tree nursery, which will grow fruit trees to give away to families, whānau, kura schools, marae, and we're also going to grow fruit trees to sell to fund the charitable purposes of our organisation. Yeah, so this is our fruit tree nursery. Right in front of us we've got a shade house that's about 300 square metres, and a shed, which is going to be like a potting up zone, an area where we can do our work, propagate seeds and fruit trees and cuttings.
And how many marae in this area do you think would be interested in growing their own food?
Well, I think right now, especially since COVID, New Zealand and probably the world over has started taking the idea of food security quite seriously because of the way that the pandemic exposed our vulnerability, and just how quickly our food security can be taken away from us, not only from a pandemic but from an extreme weather event, from road closures, slips. So since COVID, I've definitely noticed a huge rising in people's interest and desire to learn how to grow food so that we can get through, hardships. Yeah, that's our kaupapa o Nuku Aotearoa is just to try to help support that by providing learning opportunities and resources that are going to help people grow their own kaipa, where it's very early days. But moving forward, this space here, our site, our nursery, will become like our HQ, our headquarters. We hope to have a educational garden. All the fruit trees that we're going to be giving away and selling will have living examples here of them, so it'll become an orchard in itself, and just a space of learning, a space where resources are created and disseminated out to the community. A bit of an industrial hub of enterprise is what we hope that this place will become.
Jared Hiakita at his fruit tree nursery not far from Hokianga Harbour. The nursery is part of his charity Onuku. He hopes the growing and learning enterprise will be up and running by the end of the year. Oh, and you also heard from Dragon, the Kunikuni piglet. That piece produced by Sally Round, and she tells me she was tempted to take Dragon home in her backpack.